On previous videos we looked at getting data from the keyboard, displaying data to the screen, and also we've looked at if statements and if-else statements to be able to branch through our program. Now another part of programming is to be able to loop around to do things. So we're going to do some loops. First of all, I could do getting something from the keyboard. Now to remember to get things from the keyboard, we have to use input. If we want to give somebody instructions, we have to use print. Now I'm going to ask them to enter a number. Now remember, input will give us a string, a set of characters. So to be able to make input be an integer, a whole number, we have to put int, and then the input goes into brackets around the outside. So our program should now get an integer from the keyboard. What the program is going to do is going to ask for a number, and then it's going to print out the times table for whatever number that might be. And you're going to loop round a certain number of times for this loop to be able to print out the times table. So to be able to loop, I use something called for. Okay, and I'm going to use a variable called I. You can call a variable whatever you want, you can call it counter, but traditionally we use I as a loop counter. And the range it's going to loop round in is, computers like to start at 0, so we could do 0 to 10. And that would mean it would start at 0 and go round until it got to 10, but it would stop at 10. So do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then stop when it goes to 10. So it would actually do it 10 times, it would do it 0 to 9. So normally if we want to loop around 10 times, we do 0, 10. Now I need to print something out. Now to start with, I'm just going to print out whatever I has, just to see that it really does do 0 to 9. I run the program and it asks for a number, I put in 5, and it loops around printing out 0 to 9, because we haven't actually done anything with the number that we've input. But it's looping around 0 to 9. Now, if we're doing times table, normally actually, you don't do 0 to 9. You usually do 1 to 10. So we can change our numbers, we can make it 1, but of course we'd have to make that 11, so it would go round from 1 and print out 10, but then stop when it gets to 11. Okay? So it's our starting and the position we stop. If we run it again, put in another number, I'll put in, doesn't matter what number we put in 15, it now loops round 1 to 10. So we've got our loop going around the right number of times, and I is changing value each time around the loop. So it's probably about time we actually used num, the number that we're actually getting from the keyboard. So if we want to print out the times table, we're going to say that it's 1 times something, 2 times something, 3 times something. So we have to put I, and then a times, I'm just going to put an X just so it looks nice, and then num. So let's try this again. I'm going to type in 15, and it now says 1 times 15, 2 times 15, as we keep going around the loop. So we've got the basic part of the times table done, but obviously we need to have the answer at the end. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make it display the answer to the times table calculation. Now there's two ways we could do this. We could do it by doing a calculating the variable first, or we could calculate it in the print line. So first, I'm going to try and calculate it first. I've made a new variable called ans, short for answer, and answer is just going to be I times num, and then in my print line, I'll put equals and the answer. Now, that's a nice clear way of doing it. If we actually try running our program, it should come up with, this time, the 22 times table, and it works correctly. Now, that's a nice, readable, easy way of doing the code, but sometimes you can make your code a little bit shorter by putting the calculation actually in the print line. So instead of having a new variable called answer, we could actually just put the calculation straight into the print command. So let's try running it again, just check we get the right results. So enter a number, this time I'm going to enter number 15 for the 15 times table, and yes, it works correctly. Now our loop is counting upwards from 1 up to 10, and people usually like counting up. There's actually a third parameter which you can put in. I'm going to put in 1 at the moment. If you don't put a third parameter, a third number in your for loop, it assumes you've put in 1. And that's just the number we add on each time as you go up. So we're adding 1 on. 1, 2, 3, 4, we're adding 1 on each time. Now we don't have to add on 1. If you want to, we could try adding on 2. If we run our program again, and this time we'll do the 15 times table again, it's gone 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, because I has started off at 1, but then added 2 on to get to 3, then added 2 on to get to 5, then 2 on to get 7, 2 on to get to 9. So that third parameter can mean that we can jump up by different amount of numbers. If you don't put a number in, it assumes 1. Now, as we're counting up, adding on 1 or adding on 2, we can actually also count down by taking off 1. Now for this, obviously, we need to start at a higher number and go down to a lower number. So we're going to start off at 10, go down to 0, but we stop before we get to 0. So it goes 10 to 1. If we run the program, you can see it starts at 10 and goes down to 1. So we can also go backwards in our for loop. Depends what you want your program to do. Today we looked at a for loop that loops around a certain number of times. Next time I'm going to tell you about a while loop, which will loop around while something is true. Therefore it could loop around 1 time, it could loop around 0 times, it could loop around 100 times. But that's what we'll look at next time.